Sarah, is it all right? I'll go ahead and call it to order.
Yes.
Okay. All right, good morning. I'm Marian Alme, the chairman of the Florida Historical Commission, and I'm going to ask Sarah to call the roll. I have now called the meeting to order.
Marian Alme,
Present.
Judy Bent, John Browning, Steve Burtman,
Present.
Bill Clegg, Matt Hudson,
Here.
Rick Gonzalez,
Here.
John Phelps,
Here.
Cliff Smith.
Here.
Do we have a quorum, Sarah?
Yes, we do.
All right, we have a quorum. We're going to move to item 2, introduction of commission, staff, and guests. So I'm going to start with Rick Gonzalez and ask him to introduce himself and then move to John Phillips.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Rick Gonzalez. I'm the president of REG Architects in West Palm Beach, and I'm glad to be here today.
Thank you, John.
John Phelps. I'm staff director of the Senate Rules Committee.
Okay, that was pretty brief. Thank you. Matt, your turn.
Would you like more?
Go. Matt, who are you, please?
My name's Matt Hudson, and I'm a recovering politician, having served 9 years in the Florida House, and now I'm vice president of a healthcare company.
Great. Cliff Smith.
Good morning. I am senior planner for the city of Sarasota and chairman of the National Review Board and member of the Florida Historic Commission.
Steve. Steve Burtman, are you there?
Yes, I apologize. My carpet is being ripped out even as we speak, so I'm going to be very brief and will not be discussing much because you will hear all of the construction in the background. Steve Burtman, I work for the city of Tallahassee. I do multiple different things for the city. Thank you very much.
Okay. Is there a commission member that I have missed? Anyone else
Marian.
online? Hello?
Yes, we have Bill Clegg now. Yes.
Okay. Please introduce yourself.
I'm sorry, I wasn't sure if you could hear me.
Yes, we can.
Okay, because it told me I was in listen only mode. I apologize. I'm having a little
Testing.
getting used to this technology. My name is Bill Clegg. I'm a chief assistant county attorney for Manatee County. Person, avid history buff. My mother's written 16 historical fiction novels and dragged me all over the country to historical sites from the time I was about 4 years old. So it's been the love of my life.
All right. Anyone else on the commission? Then I'll introduce myself, Marian Alme, archaeologist, president Archaeological Consultants in Sarasota. Is that it for members present?
I think Judy has joined us now.
Judy, are you here? Judy Bent's present? I
see
don't
her name,
hear.
but
Pardon?
I see her name, but maybe not sure. Maybe there's some technological issues.
All right, well, we're waiting for other commissioners to join us. I would ask Tim Parsons, the State Historic Preservation Officer and Chief of the Division of Historical Resources, would you please introduce staff?
Thank you, Marian. I would be happy to. Joining me here in Tallahassee at the Department of State, we have Assistant Director Angela Tomlinson, as well as our Program Administrator, Sarah Lico. I'm Tim Parsons, the Director of the Division of Historical Resources. And I believe on the phone, we also have, or on the webinar, we have Alyssa Lotane, who is our Bureau Chief of Historic Preservation. I also believe that we have Katie Miar, who is our relatively newly installed Bureau Chief and State Archaeologist over at the Bureau of Archaeological Research. And I know that Michael Hart is our ever-present webinar moderator, and we're very glad that he's here guiding us through all of the challenges related to technology. And I don't think we have anyone else from the Department of State or the Division of Historical Resources on the webinar, but if I am incorrect about that, anyone who's out there, now would be the appropriate time to let us know that you're here. And I take that silence as there being no one else on the line.
Are there any guests on the line? Michael, can you tell that?
Sorry,
I can tell that,
my name's Suzanne Hunt. I'm out here listening in, Outreach Program Supervisor.
Well, hi, Suzanne.
Hiya.
All right. Suzanne is not a guest. We know that. Are there any guests, Michael?
Candy Fuller is on the line with the DEP. Also, I should state that Kim Konecki, the head of the grants program, is also present.
Okay. All right, so this is the roll of characters that we have here. Any other commission members? We're going to assume you're here, Judy. Is that correct? We just don't hear you?
Yes.
There she is.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, who are you? Would you please introduce yourself?
My name is Judy Benz. I'm at the University of West Florida.
Okay, Mr.
Okay.
Then I'm going to move on, if it's okay, Sarah, if we're on a roll here, for the adoption of the agenda. I assume everyone has received it. Are there any changes projected for the agenda? Hearing none, I would like to have a motion for the adoption of the agenda, please.
I move for the
You
adoption.
move.
Second.
I see Rick Gonzalez raise his hand. See, I'm checking up on you guys. All right, then we have a motion and a second for the adoption of the agenda. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. The agenda passes as presented. We'll now move to item 4, approval of the minutes for the August 7th meeting. Do we have any corrections, additions, or comments? Everybody's quiet. Then may I have a motion to accept the minutes as mailed?
So motion.
Okay. John Phelps said motion. Cliff raised his hand. I'm assuming that could be a second. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the adoption of the minutes as presented, please say aye.
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 Aye. Those opposed? Thank you. Now we need to approve the minutes for the special category grant application review meeting. Are there comments, questions, or corrections on those minutes?
Motion to accept.
Thank you, Rick. We have a second from John, is it?
Oh, Matt.
Second.
Matt, thank you, Matt. Motion and a second. Those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed likewise. Thank you. We'll move to item 6, the chairman's comments. I'm glad we're all still able to meet. The division, I know, has been carrying on remarkably well, and I'm always surprised when I call, which I do often on other kinds of business, and I immediately get someone I'm looking for, but I find out that they admit that they're in their pajamas, or they're sitting out in their yard with their computer. So it's obvious the division has risen to the current circumstances and is helping all those that need it. I don't have any other comments at this point. How about Tim as the director?
Thanks, Mary. And I have a few, and I'll try to be quick because I know that Alyssa and Katie probably have some more interesting things to say as compared to my, bureaucratic notes. First, I want to thank all the commissioners as usual for being here, and also announce that we have two new commissioners on the phone. Of course, Matt Hudson joined us for the special category grant hearings, which we were very happy for, and we welcome him to his first, official Historical Commission business meeting. And we also have Mr. Bill Clegg with us for the first time today, and welcome. And I hope we have several years of good discussions and a lot of good times, because I, for one, think these meetings are pretty fun. I should also announce that, unfortunately, Commissioner Tim Holliday, decided to resign from the Florida Historical Commission. So, unfortunately, he won't be joining us henceforth. Of course, he missed the special category grant hearings. That was right around the time he told us that he was resigning from the commission. I don't know precisely why he didn't indicate, but of course we do wish him the best, and maybe our paths will cross in the future, because he certainly was a very nice and knowledgeable and a great commissioner.
We also have Kathy Spurgeon, who termed off, and she sent a nice email to me as the chairman yesterday, and I wrote her back and thanked her on behalf of the commission and the division for all the hard work that she had done. And Tim, I wonder do we, or does the secretary on behalf of the commission send a letter to commissioners who have termed off and thank them for their service? We used to do that. I don't know if we still.
Typically, the secretary does send letters to commissioners that have termed off. So we'll make sure the secretary, after she wakes up, because I think she's sleeping in the last several days after the election, we'll remind her to send out those letters.
And when they do go out, if it's feasible, could the commission members receive a copy?
I certainly don't see why not.
Okay, thank you very much. Sorry for the interruption.
No problem at all. I just have a few quick things to update you on. One, something that's going to be pretty big coming up. I know the commission is mostly aware of the $8 million grant that we got from the National Park Service. Those dollars are intended for a response to Hurricane Michael. We did solicit grant applications from the affected counties, and we received 59 applications totaling $17 million. And so, of course, we'll be putting together a panel and having a panel review for the Hurricane Michael Disaster Grants Program coming up sometime in the next couple of months. We don't have a date set with certainty yet, but we'll certainly let everybody know when that happens. Alyssa may want to give an update on this, because she's really been the driving force behind it. But I did want to mention that, once every 5 years, the National Park Service does ask us to update our comprehensive historic preservation plan. And that time has come. We're due for an update in 2021. And so Alyssa and other staff members, but headed by Alyssa, hosted a series of public webinars to solicit public input for how we and the state as a whole have been doing in regards to meeting the goals that have been laid out in our previous comprehensive plans. And so maybe Alyssa could speak a little bit more to that. But I did want to let the commission know that we're doing what the National Park Service asks of us, because that's important if we want to keep getting that National Park Service funding and be part of the Federal Historic Preservation Program. Excuse me. We have in addition to new historical commissioners, we have a brand new marker council. We have, I think, 2 new members. Suzanne may want to give an update on this. But in addition to the new members, we also have 2 new historical markers that passed muster last month. There was a B-17 crash site in St. Mark's. And I can't read my own handwriting, and so I'm sorry, I forgot what that second one is. Suzanne, could you chime in and let everybody know what the second one was? Well, that's okay. I will look it up and update everyone later. I apologize. I just wrote that down in a very sloppy way. For our Florida Folklife program, as you probably know, we've been without a state folklorist for several months. I know I'm very happy, and I know Suzanne is very happy too. We're getting close to hopefully finalizing a hire for our state folklorist. And so once we have that person installed, we will introduce them to the Historical Commission. Hopefully at the next meeting. Keep your fingers crossed that all of that will work out and we'll be able to move forward. I also would like to announce, and this is kind of a sad thing to note, but speaking of Suzanne, she is retiring at the end of this month. So Suzanne Hunt has been with us for, Suzanne, how many years? I actually don't know. But quite some time, and we're very sad to see her go. But of course, I'm sure Suzanne is very excited, and hopefully she will come back and volunteer with us and keep us all on track after her retirement. But I, for one, just want to thank her for keeping us on track for all of these years and doing such a great job with all of our outreach activities, all of our publications, overseeing the Florida Folk Life program and the Historical Markers program. She's going to be very, very missed. But congratulations to her on her retirement. And finally, as kind of a general note, just wanted to, I guess, re-announce, because I think I've brought this up at every Historical Commission meeting since the COVID pandemic has been upon us. All of our state buildings are still closed. All of our museums are still closed to the public. We don't, as of yet, have a projected date for opening, but we do have opening plans in place for the Museum of Florida History, Mission San Luis, the Grove Museum, and the Knott House Museum. And so we're when we learn of the lifting of restrictions on public access to state buildings, and of course what that would mean for our museums, because there are other considerations there too. Some museums are inside, some are more outside. Some have grounds and some do not. So each plan will be a little bit different, but we are looking forward to opening our museums when the time is right and when everything can be done safely and comfortably. And Marion, I think that pretty much concludes my comments, but I'm happy to answer any questions or address anything that any of the commissioners may have on their minds.
Commissioners,
Tim, I have a question.
Please go.
I have a question, Marion. Who's on the panel that's reviewing the applications for grants for the federal money?
Hi, John. Thanks for that question. I know that Rick Gonzalez has agreed to be on that panel, and but we do not have any other folks selected yet. We wanted to make sure that we got Rick before he got committed to do anything else.
Good choice.
Thank you.
Are there other questions from commission members? Tim, Marion has a question. The staff in the museums under the Department of State's jurisdiction, the museums that are closed, are those people furloughed? Or are they receiving salary and working in the museum, or what's happening there?
That's a great question. Thank you. I am really happy to say that they're not furloughed. Some of them are still working in the museum on tasks that, aren't public facing, obviously. We're putting out a lot of virtual material into the social media universe, and for example, Mission San Luis, just to give one example, hosted a virtual summer camp over the summer, and so Mission San Luis staff spent a lot of time building that up, standing it up, and then conducting it virtually. And it was very successful. Similarly, the Grove has transitioned a lot of its in-person activities, like the book club and so forth, to virtual activities. Now, of course, with the museums closed, we do have interpreters that work mainly with the public. So what are those folks doing? One thing that really the entire Department of State wanted to prioritize when it became clear that we were going to have to close the museums for some period of time was making sure that our employees were kept whole. And so we tried to be as creative as we could. And one thing that is the truth, and probably anybody that has ever worked at a state agency knows this, there is always something to do somewhere. And so some of our employees have been working on things as varied as entering address changes for the Division of Corporations. We have some folks that have been working on new filings for the Division of Corporations. Some museum staff, we actually temporarily transferred them to our compliance and review section because for reasons that we don't completely understand, we have still been getting tons of Section 106 consultations and other things, Marion, as you know, that and Dr. Smith as well, that compliance and review have to handle. And so we've done pretty much everything we can to try and repurpose folks, make sure that all of our full-time and part-time employees keep their hours. And at least as far as I know, I can't think of one person that has lost a single hour because we couldn't find something for them to do. And so I'm really proud of that, and I'm glad that not just in DHR but around the Department of State, we were able to make sure that everybody was able to remain, gainfully employed during the pandemic.
Thank you, Tim, for that very positive update. If there are no more questions for Tim Parsons, we'll move on to item 8, committee reports and the Bureau of Archaeological Research, Dr. Millar. Welcome, Katie. It's so nice to have you as a state archaeologist. I'm an archaeologist and I've known Katie for a long time, and I'm so happy that she's able to work on the entire state's behalf.
Well, thank you, Marion. I really appreciate it. And thank you so much. I hope everybody's doing well. Just to give some brief highlights, I know that we're on time constraints of what's going on in the Bureau of Archaeological Research. The Bureau has done a wonderful job adjusting to the remote working during the pandemic. And with the exception of being unable to travel outside of Tallahassee for site visits due to the statewide travel ban, work output from the Bureau has been unaltered, including responses to permit requests, cultural resource management plan, comments reviews, human remains, 872 case responses, artifact identification inquiries, and collections research and loan requests. Some of our program's activities have adjusted to become predominantly virtual, such as trainings, public outreach events, exhibits, and research requests, all with positive results. Some of the outreach we have done is, so Franklin Price from our underwater program gave a virtual presentation to the Florida Trust of Historic Preservation entitled Florida Shipwrecks Database. And this database includes both recorded archaeological sites as well as reported ship losses. And this GIS database is the first of its kind in Florida and conveys the quantity of historic shipwrecks blocks in Florida's waters. So it's a great research tool. Sam Wilford from our Collections Conservation Department conducted a live virtual presentation of a new brick exhibit at the Grove. This is touching on what Tim Parsons was mentioning about a lot of the museums going virtual, and we have been assisting them in the Bureau of Archaeological Research with some of their content. Jerry Lee, again, assisted Mission San Luis with their virtual summer camp programs, and has also been working and assisting on filming a series of virtual tours to take place at their usual first Wednesday archaeology-focused tours. And then in general, BAR personnel have been assisting the state's museums with preparations for the bicentennial Florida Territory anniversary. A lot of the trainings have also gone online, and Paulette McFadden and Jerry Lee conducted a full-day training for the Florida Wildlife Conservation Law Enforcement, including a field trip to Mission San Luis that was led by Jerry Lee. And Paulette also conducted a training session as part of the Master Logger training on how to recognize archaeological sites. And all these have had a lot of positive response from law enforcement and the logging community. I'm going to touch on some of our programs. So we have the Public Lands Archaeology Program and some highlights from there. Paulette works very closely with FWC law enforcement and has been working on some looting cases. And she gave a deposition on a looting case at Lake Monroe Outlet Archaeological Site, and is also monitoring 5 other cases that are in various stages of movement through the state's attorneys and court systems. Josh Goodwin conducted a tour of the Block Stearns Archaeological Site for Tim Parsons, Secretary of State Lee, Jennifer Kennedy, to assess the possibility of state acquisition of this parcel. And everybody in our Public Lands Archaeology Program have been assisting the grants program by vetting several grants applications. PLA also updated and expanded a reference guide of diagnostic artifacts of Florida to be used by land managers and law enforcement. And this is something land managers and law enforcement have been very happy to receive. The Underwater Archaeology Program, led by Ryan Duggins, Dr. Lee Newsom agreed to join our Manistota Key offshore research team to conduct wood identification on some of the artifacts. Dr. Newsom, who's located at Flagler College, is one of the country's leading paleobotanists and wood anatomists, and her expertise will lead to new insights into the MKO collection. Bureau of Archaeological Research Underwater Team submitted a grant application to the Florida Coastal Management Program entitled Shifting Shorelines, an Environmental Approach to Cultural Resource Investigation along Florida's Gulf Coast. And the goal of this research was to compare submerged paleo landscapes of Dog Island and Manasota Key, with a focus on identifying how cultural resources are impacted by contemporary erosional forces. And just this week, BAR received word that we will be awarded this grant, and the funding will be awarded for 2021 and 2022, and will provide funds for analysis, data collection, and necessary equipment. One of my main duties is to respond to human remains cases across Florida under Florida Statute 872. And since August, I've responded to 13 human remains cases. And this sort of touches on what Tim was saying, how work hasn't really stopped for compliance and review. And that's also reflecting on how many human remains cases come into with the amount of development that's still continuing in Florida. And I've been working closely with the Bureau of Historic Preservation's Compliance Review Advising team, advising them on projects with human remains components. We've also been working on the process of locating a historic cemetery on state lands at the Miccosukee Greenway in Leon County. And our goal is to protect and preserve the cemetery in place. And we're utilizing such methodologies such as cadaver dog surveys to locate the cemetery with as little ground disturbance as possible. And then quickly to touch on our collections conservation team, one of the things we tackled during the pandemic is data migration. So we had gotten a new database system, which has been wonderful and a game changer really for us. And the collections conservation staff has completed most of the importation of data and associated artifact images into this new software, which has replaced our decades-old idiosyncratic in-house created database that was literally about to fall apart in 2020. So this has been great use of their time. Staff also began cataloging paper archives in preparation for applying for a grant to digitize our archives, which is a big deal for us to make that more accessible to researchers. And we also completed a research database for our collections, which is the first comprehensive overview of the use of the state's archaeological collections by researchers and members of the public. And despite the pandemic, artifact conservation has continued at our conservation lab. And we've even been tackling the enormous task of treating the Fort Taylor objects that are currently stored with the Florida Park Service at Lake Jackson. And that's really it for an update for me. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Questions, commissioners?
Could you tell me, this is John Phelps, could you tell me a little bit more about the cemetery on the Miccosukee Greenway, where that might be located roughly?
Yes, so and Tim, you can jump into if you want on this one. So it's located in Leon County and it's managed by Leon County, but it's state lands, and it's a potential African-American slave cemetery. And some of the descendants of those interred at the cemetery reached out to try and locate it, and had quite a bit of archival documentation to indicate that it was located on this parcel. So, and being state lands, it's our responsibility to look into it, locate it, and protect it, make sure it's recorded. And but due to treaties, there's quite a bit of large trees there, and the landscape, it's not conducive for what we call GPR, ground penetrating radar, and you can't get the kind of reflections. And it's also hard with historic cemeteries if you don't have the modern metal caskets to get those kind of reflections for some of these cemeteries. So we came up, one thing we've been utilizing more also in compliance review is to do these cadaver dog surveys, which some of these dog handlers have really focused on historic cemetery issue, because this has been an issue all across Florida, is trying to locate these smaller cemeteries in more remote areas, and that are not marked anymore. They were previously marked, but not marked anymore. And they're really training these dogs for this particular task. And when it works, it's wonderful, because it's a non-destructive, non-ground disturbing way to locate these cemeteries and help bind them and bound them and determine the parameter. So that's what we're doing, and we're going to be doing that sometime this month. We had to wait till cooler weather because the dogs can't do it, handle the heat, and also it affects the scent patterns. So we're going to be doing that sometime this month in the cooler weather now to try and locate it.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. Other questions for Dr. Millar? Okay, I guess you're off the hot seat, and let's ask Alyssa Lotane if she would like to get on the hot seat.
All right, can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Great, good morning. Yes, as Tim said earlier, a lot of us are still working from home, myself included. So thanks to all me for the kind words. I feel like we are at our end of things. Everyone seems to be really productive. I do want to thank Florida Master Site File, primarily most of the staff that we have in the office. If you're not familiar with our office, you know, we're the tight quarters up there. So, you know, we've number limited, and I think we're really productive. Along the lines of the Florida Master Site File, I would give them some more kudos. I brought some numbers yesterday. Since July 1st, we have actually processed more than 12,000 new site forms, and that 10,000 of those reflect newly recorded sites. So this shatters their old records year, and that's basically due to the unprecedented number of historic preservation surveys that we had, and they still have a few left to process. But I cannot understate the importance of having these grant-funded surveys when it comes to compliance review and being able to determine where historic resources are. If you're not familiar with the file, it's our state inventory of historic archaeological cultural sites, and we have over 230,000, I think, right, reported, constantly adding to it. And these are sites that are basically 50 years old or older, including archaeological sites, bridges, a little bit of everything. And it's our starting point for a lot of the reviews that we do. So the work that they're doing with the master site file is outstanding. And also, March 1st, they have corrected 35,000 other resources that were put into our GIS data set early on in the 1990s. So they really are doing an incredible job. There are basically our base for everything we do in preservation in our office and CRM firms. So kudos to them. Next, I wanted to hit on the comprehensive plan because Tim mentioned that earlier. We did have 3 webinars in October, and I do expect for us to put out a survey coming up in probably January. I'm still working on the content of that, and with the holidays, I think we'll wait until January to put that out. We'll make sure that you get a copy. Hopefully, we can have that as a topic in meetings to get your feedback. Comprehensive plan is done every 5 years. It's actually not due again until the end of 2021, but we've got to start working on it early because it has to go to the National Park Service and get approved. So we're trying to get an early start. The Florida Main Street program, we are proud to announce that we have just gotten approval for 2 new Florida Main Street communities from the Secretary of State, and those are Fort Meade and Alapata, which is in Miami, a community in Miami. And we've also had 2 communities rejoin the program that were part of it in years past. And that's Key West and Claremont. And we're hoping that we will soon have Lake City and Pahokee to join us as well. So excited to grow that program. The downtown areas and businesses are obviously in need right now, and I can't say enough good things about Catherine Beck and Laura Saccone and what they've done to help get information out to those managers in the local communities and to help those businesses. We are still in the process of filling several of our positions. We are advertising for, we hope, for a certified local government manager. We're still trying to hire our other architect position. And also we have 2 positions, 2 OPS positions in compliance and review, which we are hoping to fill soon. We've selected people, but we just need to get them in there. We, as far as compliance and review goes, if you're not familiar with compliance and review, we review state and federal undertakings, permittings, anything state and federally funded for impact to historical and archaeological resources. And one of the things we've just completed, for example, is a programmatic agreement for Tyndall Air Force Base. Obviously, you know, it was heavily damaged by Hurricane Michael. And we only indicated that one structure left there was eligible for the National Register. So we've completed that programmatic agreement so that they can go forward with that. We have had a massive amount of projects, as Tim mentioned earlier, in compliance and review. You would think with everything going on, construction might have slowed down or projects might have slowed down, but they've actually increased very heavily. Just to give you an idea, this calendar year, we reviewed 9,828 projects. That was the number earlier this week, so far in 2020. At this time last year, we had only reviewed 8,673. So we are up about 1,200 projects from what we were last year. And I'm told that we could have reviewed another 2,000 projects if we had had the staff. We've had to really triage and sort of set aside ones that we felt weren't that important or weren't going to have an impact and focus on the ones that were the most important. So we hope that we can get back to 100% review process soon, but they are really doing a great job to get those projects done. We are also in the final process of updating our FEMA programmatic agreement, and that will help us to take some of the weight off of the compliance and review staff so that some of those Hurricane Michael and other hurricane projects we won't have to look at those. There's actually a list of different types of projects that are minor projects that we have sort of said we don't need to see those. So that will kind of cut down on the number that we're seeing and help us focus on the most important ones. We are also still bombarded in compliance and review with 5G cell tower reviews, as well as the site files getting a lot of requests for information for those. As you know, 5G's coming online now and they're all over the place. And so it's been a little difficult. It's kind of an issue nationwide. It's difficult when you see them piecemeal to determine how they impact a historic district when they're popping up over and over again. And, you know, you may see 300 of them and 299 of them are absolutely fine. And, you know, there's one that's not. So we're trying to stay on top of those too. Rick Kilburn and I are continuing to review historic tax credit projects. We've received a part 3 that we're waiting for approval on for the Hotel Blanche in downtown Lake City. So that would close out that project and get them their federal historic tax credit. And also we just received a part 3 to close out the Barnett Bank project in Jacksonville. We have actually a lot of tax credit projects going on in Jacksonville, and I think that's due to the downtown National Register nomination that was done, gosh, I think 4 or 5 years ago. So those are really taken off in Jacksonville. If you had a chance to join us at the National Register meeting yesterday, thank you. If you are on our National Register Review Board, we appreciate you helping us with that. We had all of our nominations passed unanimously except for one. And I don't have the list in front of me. If you'd like to get the list, I can have Sarah send that list to you. The other thing that the National Register section is working on is taking a look at territorial period resources to list on the National Register. And this is due to the upcoming bicentennial, the Florida Territorial Bicentennial, which I know John Phelps had asked me about last year. So Tim may want to say more about the efforts that the Museum of Florida History is making toward that. They're leading the effort, and the state archives, we all have a working group that we are working on different projects for the Territorial Bicentennial. So we actually have a lot of the National Register nominations for those resources are very old. They're from the 1970s, so we may be updating a lot of those too. And I think that's my entire list, unless I missed something, or if you have any questions.
Thank you, Alyssa. Are there questions? I have a question, and it may not be for Alyssa. Tim and I had touched on this quite a while back. The Historical Commission gives awards technically each year, but we didn't last year. But we have one award that we gave to Dr. George Lure, archaeology, and he's received a letter, according to Sarah, which is good, but we never did get to give him his plaque or anything, and I wondered if we could produce a plaque and a note from the secretary saying congratulations or whatever, and close that chapter out so that when and if we get ready to vote on more awards, we're ready to go forward. And I don't know if that, I'm thinking that falls under the Bureau of Historic Preservation, Alyssa, but whatever.
Hi, Marion, this is Tim. That might be more me and Sarah's realm. I think, we've kind of been holding out hope that we'd be able to, it's always nice to do award ceremonies in person, and it would have been nice, particularly with someone of George's caliber, to be able to present that award to him personally at an event. But, you probably are correct. We don't know when we'll be able to do that. In the past, we've, co-presented awards with the Florida Trust for Historic Preservation and also our Division of Cultural Affairs. And right now, of course, none of those events are going forward as far as conferences or award ceremonies. So really, I think it probably comes down to the will of the commission. If you would like for us to go ahead and produce the plaque and the letter and send it to George, we can, or we can, continue hoping against hope, I guess, that maybe we'll be able to, hopefully early in 2021, start planning for in-person award ceremonies again.
Marion, again, I would truly like the commission to consider requesting that we move ahead with this. I hate to lose what little momentum we have because we just do 2 awards, one for volunteer and one for professional, and they're actually quite prized, and I would like to continue with that, but I would like to see that recipients actually get their plaque. We can always grab the plaque back from Dr. Lure and give it to him publicly at a later date, but I'd like to give it to him before he drops dead, not that he's planning to, but let's just, if we could, get this off our desk. Is there discussion and or a motion?
Yeah, Marion, I would be happy to make that motion and let George get his letter and his plaque and move forward, and hopefully next year we can do a public presentation if that's feasible.
Thank you. Is there a second? Thank you, Matt. I saw Matt raise his hand first. Oh, now he's got his thumb up. Hey, okay. All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on taking care of the plaque and closing that particular award? Okay, hearing none, I call the question. Those in favor of preparing the plaque and a letter from the secretary or whomever is appropriate. Those in favor, please say aye.
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 Thank you. Those opposed? Hearing none, Tim, would you and Sarah at your convenience take care of that?
We certainly will.
Thank you very much. All right, Alyssa, you finished up, I believe. And Dr. Tomlinson, grants program update, please.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Just to give a few updates since our last business meeting in August. So one of the first things I just wanted to mention was we included in your meeting materials that Sarah sent earlier this week, I believe, in an email, sort of at the request of Commissioner Phelps at the special category meeting. He asked about an update on closed projects. So had grant staff, Tim Knepke, put together a list of the projects that we've closed in the last year. It ended up being from about June, the end of June 2019 through last month. So a little bit more than fiscal year 2020, but about 30 special category projects are on the list that we sent to you. We've really made a good effort in our grant program to try and get some of the older projects from fiscal 16, 17, and 18 closed in the last year. That was made a little bit easier because we've been at full staff in the grant program for about the last year and a half, so that makes it easier to really keep in communication with grantees help, steward and forward them along in their projects. So the list we included just has sort of the basic information on the grants. Just to give you an example of some of them, we also included some flyers that had some before and after pictures on just a selected number of them. If there are any on the list that was sent that any commissioner would like to, have more information about, we can certainly provide that at the next meeting if you'll just let Sarah know or contact Tim Knepke or myself on that. But I feel like we made some really good progress last year on getting some of the older grants closed out. So regarding the special category meeting, which we all participated in on September 28th and 29th, the commission scored and reviewed 67 eligible applications. And again, I want to extend a great deserved thank you to all of you for your participation in the grant review process, which is one of the most important things we do every year. Of the 67 applications that were reviewed, 15 did fall below the threshold of 80 points, average points. Just for comparison, last year 18 fell below, so that's sort of on par with how you have scored the last few years. This left 52 projects to move forward to the Secretary of State for funding consideration. The total amount of the requested funding for those 52 projects came out to $14,907,266. And a copy of the list was forwarded to the Secretary of State and is also posted on our grants webpage. And that's also attached to the special category minutes that you sent, so you also received the list in your meeting materials. Again, for comparison, last year the total recommended funding was 38 projects for $11.9 million in total, which the 2020 legislature funded 19 projects at $5.5 million. However, the governor, as we all know, did veto that appropriation. So we're hopeful that the legislature and governor will approve similar funding this year, but as we know, we're not sure what's going to happen with funding in the coming legislature. Lastly, on my report, for grants, the annual rule update we're getting, now that we've gotten through all of the application for small matching and special category, the application and review cycle, as we do every year, we're going to look at updating our annual grants rule and the guidelines associated with both programs. And usually we try not to make too many changes for the past few years, but we do try to take into account any lessons learned from the previous years, the questions that we often get from grantees and applicants, like how to, make the guidelines better and clearer for those issues. So we're just in the very beginning stages of review of those guidelines for updates, and of course we'll share any substantive revisions that we make this year before they're finalized. In connection with the grant review, I just wanted to bring up now a few items that Commissioner Phelps raised at the special category meeting towards the end in the public comment period, because these do relate to our program guidelines for special category. One of the issues or questions regarding the scoring criteria for threat or endangerment. I just wanted to point out that this criteria was actually brought in last year in our rule revision last year. So currently the guidelines do not require specifically a threat or endangerment for a project scoring criteria. That was brought into the demonstrated need of the proposed project as it relates to the preservation of the history of Florida or its historical and archaeological resources. So the intent of this change was to allow applicants to provide broader information in their application regarding the need for the project beyond a threat or specific threat or endangerment, and also allow the scoring criteria to take into account this broader information. So I feel like we sort of addressed that already, but if there's any additional things that the Commission wanted to recommend for how we could broaden that maybe even further, we're of course open to hearing those recommendations. There was also a question at the meeting that several commissioners discussed about the eligibility of grant activities directed at privately owned properties that have a facade or other preservation easement held by a nonprofit. Currently, the special category guidelines do allow for this. This change was added in 2018. Prior to that, fee simple ownership by a nonprofit was required for special category grant funding for site-specific projects. But it seemed like, and again, we'll take into account for sure your recommendation, but it did seem like the commission pretty unanimously felt like that facade easement, ownership by facade easement or preservation easement was not enough for funding a project. So of course we can make that change this year if the commission so recommends to go back to requiring nonprofit ownership in fee simple, not simply through a facade or preservation easement. And the last item for discussion regarding the special category guidelines that Commissioner Phelps raised was the timing of the application cycle. So currently in administrative rule and our grant guidelines, our application submission period is April 1 through June 1. This is for both small matching and special category. This time frame does allow for completion of the full review by DHR staff, which includes not just grant staff, but also our archaeologists, our architects, and our museum staff, and also for the RFI process, going back to questions with applicants with questions. So this timeline does allow us currently to be able to complete that entire review and RFI process at least 4 weeks prior to the public review meetings for both special category and small matching meetings. So that's our goal when we set that June 1st timeline, was to allow enough time for complete reviews before we had our meetings, and also to allow enough time for complete review to send the staff reviews to the panelists and FHC before the meetings. So those are the three issues that I think are kind of up for discussion right now that were raised by Commissioner Phelps at the special category meeting.
Thank you, Dr. Tomlinson. Yes.
Marion, may I speak to those three issues briefly?
Please.
First of all, thank you very much for considering those questions. I still believe that the endangerment category disadvantages museum exhibit proposals.
Yeah.
And unless we have a policy, because by definition there is no endangerment involved in those proposals, but if we don't somehow account for that category, it reduces the total score of those proposals. So we probably should have a policy of some kind that addresses that issue if we're going to be accepting these types of proposals. I don't know what it should be. Maybe you have some ideas along those lines, but do you get the point of that?
Yes, 100%. And that's why we did, this is a comment that has come up multiple times, so that's why in our last rule revision we did try to broaden that beyond just requiring endangerment. So we no longer in the criteria and the guidelines require a specific endangerment. So I guess the question I would have for the commission is that something that you would want to remove that criteria completely to take out the demonstrated need? That could include endangerment, but doesn't have to include endangerment. I'm not sure how to completely address that with that criteria as currently written.
Marion here. I agree with John. I always felt awkward, and then I would give that particular grant much higher scores in each category to try to offset that, and I don't know what that did in the end. Judy, you've done lots of this work, and you have been involved in exhibits in your professional life, etc. Do you have any thoughts on this topic?
Well, I'm torn like John is, you know. I mean, it puts all museum exhibits out of uh, as a detriment, and I don't quite know what to do about it. We could, you know, one thing you could do is you could just make the score for museum exhibit proposals 90 instead of 100, and it would be reevaluated based on that, and that would take care of it statistically. But that might be a problem, Sarah, with the you know, the program that you're using or that we use to do the scoring. But that's about the only way you can sort of handicap the museum exhibits and keep the same scoring process, the other 9 categories.
Other
I think I would
commissioners?
agree with Dr. Bentz. That needs, there should be some way that we can try to level the playing field and maybe some kind of par, basically saying all museum exhibits would be given a fixed score that would put them somewhere in the mid-range relative to the other projects.
Or we could agree to give them 10, you know, just ignore on endangerment, you know, and that would cancel them out too.
That's how I did it last time myself. Because I didn't know of any alternative way to score it.
Right.
Right, yes.
So maybe we just kind of keep that question in play. If there's a better solution than a fixed score, then I would certainly be open to it. But I don't know how long it will take you to go through the rules writing process to account for this change. So maybe we should be sure we don't lose track of that before that time deadline tolls.
Yeah. We'll be working on the rule revisions. Usually we do that in November and December so that we can publish them in the early part of the year so that the rule revision can be complete processed through the FAR and complete review before the cycle opens on April 1st. So we'll think about that over the next month or two and see if there's a way we can address that. But again, you know, it's currently written, the criteria is demonstrated need as it relates to, let me find it, of the proposed project or activity as it relates to the preservation of the history of Florida or its historical and archaeological resources. So, in a way, it does allow for you to take into consideration and that is a specific question in the application to provide the demonstrated need for the project. So some museum, I mean, my take from the way that question is answered by some of the museum projects is that some of them do a better job than others of why this new update to whatever exhibit they're wanting to update is really needed. Sometimes it relates to the exhibit is just old and out of date. Sometimes they want to change the exhibit and address some new concern that has come up within the museum field for, you know, Florida history, a new focus. So, you know, they're not necessarily all the same quality of answer on that question right now, but we could consider doing a fixed score or some kind of, we'll look at that when we're looking at the rule revision.
Or perhaps the term endangerment might be revisited with respect to exhibits. You might have some way of having an alternative score relative to that term. I don't know if I have a better idea at this point, but if you all would just continue to think about that, that may be a solution. Marion, I don't want to dominate this, but I want to make 2 more points, if I may. First of all, I want to thank Sarah and of course, Dr. Tomlinson for the brief synopsis they sent us on recently this morning, really, on the projects that have been completed. This is very rewarding to me to see where we were and where we've come, because it shows us what kind of outcome we're getting from the projects, and whatever information you can provide us, however brief, it doesn't have to be anything lengthy, but just what you sent us this morning gives us an idea of what we're accomplishing with this grants program, and I think it was extremely helpful, and I thank you for that. The other thing I wanted to mention is this, and it's not the fault of the department, it's the fault of the legislature, or if you will, of the circumstances under which we had to work this year with respect to appropriations. The appropriations bill was not delivered to the governor until, I guess, June 15th this year or thereabouts. And so that necessarily put those projects that were in that queue for appropriation at a disadvantage, assuming, as we all did, that there might not be money available for those projects. What I would like to do as a matter of policy, if that should come up again, if that same situation should come up again, we should inform those folks who were funded in the appropriations bill that they might want to consider resubmitting that proposal as a contingency in the event that there should be a veto. And perhaps the department could take the initiative under those circumstances. I hope we don't face that this year. We may not. But if we do, I'd like to at least put those on alert, those applications that were funded that face the possibility of a veto, and ask them to resubmit for the following year. Some did. I went through the list, and I think 2 or 3 actually resubmitted their proposals, but the others did not. And I think this might be helpful to those that are not aware of how this process actually works.
This is Angela. I think that's something we can very easily do through our grant program. Every year before the application cycle opens, they do outreach, including email, grant listserv, including webinars on how to apply. So I think we can add in to that outreach, making sure that applicants that are on the funded list, if we have that, at the point that we have that, understand that they, could make the decision to reapply because we're not sure how the funding will go. And that is an option that they could reapply.
Yeah, I would appreciate that. I think that would be very helpful.
Cliff Smith, you had your hand raised. I can see that. Couldn't hear you.
Thank you very much, Marion. I want to go back to the question of endangerment. One of the things that in the discussion when I was hearing is the quote of demonstrated need. I think instead of listing that category strictly as endangerment, you could list that category as demonstrated need. And that demonstrated need could either be endangerment or could be that the exhibit for the museum is outdated or technologically challenged or has disinformation in it, needs to be updated. So I think you could demonstrate the need for the museum to do the revised or new exhibit under that category, and that would make that a useful category instead of strictly endangerment. The other item in the discussion was the question of the facade. And I remember in our special category grants discussion that one of the buildings had a facade that was under some preservation initiative so that it was then listed under a 501c3 or something like this. And it created a problem because it was a privately owned building. And so I agree with staff's recommendation that we may want to eliminate that as part of a review of these buildings, because I think it does a disservice to all the other applicants. So those are my comments.
Other comments, ladies and gentlemen? I have just one comment. Cliff mentioned demonstrated need, like an outdated exhibit or mechanically not working, which I appreciate. But if somebody had a roof falling in and somebody wanted to put in an exhibit, I would think that the roof falling in was a greater demonstrated need. And so I still think we have apples and oranges, but I don't know how to fix it. So that's all I had to say on that topic. Anything else for this discussion? All right, then thank you, Dr. Tomlinson.
Just to clarify,
yes.
Does the commission as a whole, it sounds like you do, I just wanted, before we move forward with that in the rule revision, we will go back to requiring fee simple ownership by a nonprofit, not allowing facade ownership via a facade or other preservation easement. Is the commission okay with that change to the rule this year?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, we see nodding heads on this.
Do you need a motion on that, Maureen?
I don't think we need a motion because it wouldn't.
Okay.
Okay.
It would be certainly a recommendation of the historical commission that we can act on during our rule revision.
Yeah, we'll make that change in the rule revision, and we'll also look at somehow tweaking, expanding on that demonstrated need criteria, and hopefully we'll get better. We'll make it better for museums to demonstrate their need and also other applicants as well. So thank you for the input.
All right. We'll move on to business items. Category 9A, annual election of assistant presiding officer. I guess that's the vice chairman. Right now, I think Dr. Ben serves in that position. I think before that, Rick Gonzalez served in that. Who wants to serve in that? I guess you can nominate yourself or others nominate you. You can't signal each other. You can signal me, but I can't make a motion because I can see you all. I guess you can see each other. Anyway, I'm going to be quiet and wait.
I'll nominate Rick and let Judy and Rick sort of rotate year after year, if that's okay.
Well, it's such a well-paying position. I know they both like that.
That's right.
That's good.
Then we have,
That's good.
okay. Then we have a motion, a nomination for Rick Gonzalez as vice chair. Do we have a second for that or support? I see.
Second.
Okay, we got two. We got Matt and we got Cliff and we got Judy. Everybody likes you, Rick, today. Absolutely. All right. Is there any further discussion?
Yeah, my second is conditioned on Rick singing the Florida Historical Commission fight song.
I'm going for that. How does that go, Rick? How does that go?
Judy?
I don't know then.
How does that
Rah, rah, rah. Okay, if you're not going to sing it.
I don't know.
The fight song is really just the intro to Stairway to Heaven.
Oh, I like that.
Oh. All right. Then those, is there further discussion about Rick because he can't sing the song or anything? Hearing none, then those in favor of Rick Gonzalez being the presiding officer. Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Everybody say aye. Those opposed, please, the same. You got the job, Rick. Thank
Wow.
you, Judy, for your service.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, congratulations. All right. Dates for upcoming business. Is that you, Sarah?
Yes, and let me flip my page. I talked with Ruben this morning. He told me that he didn't have the dates in front of him at the National Register meeting yesterday, so he has provided me with the NR Review Board dates for the upcoming year, and then we're going to try to do the same thing that we've been doing the next day with the FHC business meeting dates. So the ones that we have are February 4th and 5th, May 6th and 7th, August 5th and 6th, and November 4th and 5th.
And would you email those to us who are slow and couldn't write it down that fast?
Yes, I will. And I also want to just say that the May dates are the only ones that we are a little bit hesitant on. Those could change because it is a late session, and I know the Florida Trust sometimes has some things scheduled around that time. So I will send these dates, but the May dates could change, and they have the last couple of years been. That's the one that's been a little bit later in the month. Usually are the May meetings. So, but yeah, I will email them out to everyone.
Thank you.
Oh, and sorry, I just wanted to add quickly that those of you who are not on the National Register Review Board, you are still welcome to, join and listen in. You wouldn't be taking any action on that board, but if you're interested, especially our new members in listening in on those meetings, please feel free to attend them, and I can get that information to you as well before those meetings.
Our newer members may not know that those people are usually appointed by the governor, and they are the professionals in archaeology, architecture, architectural history, etc. And the requirements are prescribed by the National Park Service that runs the National Register program. Just FYI.
By the way, the Florida Trust, starting this year, has joined their conference with the Florida Main Street, which is in July. So I don't think May is going to be a problem anymore.
Okay, thank you.
Good, that has been one, yeah.
This is Dr. Tomlinson again. Just a reminder, we haven't set a date, but we usually do schedule the special category review meeting, which is not a business meeting, in September. We usually schedule that based on some of the other stakeholder meetings around the state. Usually the FAM conference is somewhere in September, so we kind of wait until we know what else is going on in September before we schedule that. But we can start trying to look at those dates as soon as we can as well. But just keep in mind that there will be an extra meeting in September probably.
Oh, great. Thank you. All right. We've done the meeting dates. Other business. Does anyone online, visitors or commission members, have other business?
Marion, this is John Phelps, could I just offer a suggestion? And that is, when we do the grant, if we have to do the grant selection process again next year online, I hope we don't, but if we do, I would very much like to have the option of doing this as a Zoom meeting rather than just on a phone meeting.
Yeah, that'd be good.
John, this is Tim. I'm glad you brought that up, because although we were kind of weighing the options, this goes back to how state government works, right? How agencies do things. So with programs like that, the Department of State typically wants to do enterprise licenses as opposed to having the divisions or bureaus procure multiple licenses. And just within the last couple of weeks, the Department of State has bought a Zoom enterprise license. So going forward, Zoom will be an option for us. So we did get feedback that people tend to prefer Zoom to this platform and to conference calls. So for some of our meetings, at least, we'll be transferring over to Zoom, and that shouldn't be a problem.
I guess I will have to get my hair cut.
Yeah, so will I.
You look pretty good, John. All right. That was other business. We're going to Zoom about. All right. Public comment. Is there any public on the line?
Marion, this is Tim. Could I add one brief other business real quick just to recognize somebody who's leaving us at the Department of State?
Certainly.
Some of the commissioners, not all of you, might remember Christy Fitzpatrick, who for a long time or several years at least, was the Deputy Secretary over the Division of Library and Information Services, Cultural Affairs, and DHR. And prior to that, she was our Legislative Affairs Director. Today is Christy's last day at the Department of State. So she'll be moving back down south. She's going to be closer to family and expanding her own family. So we're all very happy for her, and she's moving on to the next big thing in her life, and we're definitely going to miss her. But for the commissioners that have interacted with Christy in the past, just wanted to let y'all know that today is her last day with us here at DOS.
Well, thank you. And if Suzanne Hunt is still on the line, who's retiring, I wondered if she wanted to share any thoughts, comments, or her future with us, but she may already have signed off.
She might be here. There she is. Yeah.
I'm eavesdropping. Yeah, I'm eavesdropping. Thank you. Thoughts for the future. It's such a strange year, and but it's been a good 20 plus. I came in 97 because of the magazine, which few of you might remember.
Yes.
Which was a good run, and a sad loss to me anyway. But I have certainly appreciated all the things I've learned and the people I've worked with here. And I'm really excited, frankly, about the future of this division, the youth, and the talent that has come in. There's been, as a lot of you know, a kind of a generational changeover in the last 5-10 years or so, and it's exciting to see the dedication and the commitment and the skills that the state is very, very, very lucky to still be able to attract and maintain, given the challenges, frankly, of working sometimes in a bureaucracy, as you all know. So, I mean, I think it's exciting it'll be exciting to watch what's going forward, and I'll probably show up once in a while to hang out at the Grove or do some other things. So, but I wish everybody well, and thanks
Thank
for
you,
everybody's
Suzanne.
support.
I've worked with Suzanne on many projects and things over the years, and there's two favorite things I want to share, which have nothing to do with your professional capability, which is outstanding, Suzanne. One, when I never could get in the door on the fourth floor, I guess that's where you were, I would bang on the door, and Suzanne would always come and open it so I could come in. And I want to thank you for all those times you got up from your desk and no one else did. And the second thing is, if you receive emails from the Department of State with various news clippings, which are very interesting to read about preservation, Suzanne sends those. And so I've told Suzanne I feel I still have a close working relationship with her. Whenever her name pops up on my screen, I say, Suzanne, there you are. And I will miss that. And you've done so many different things in the division. It'll be different without you. But like you said, we're going forward with a lot of new brains and good people.
Great, thank you.
You're very welcome. Other public comments?
I would just like to thank Suzanne too. I think she's just done a wonderful job wherever she's been.
Yes, moving about. All right, then the next item in red, and the only item left, is 12, adjournment. Do we need a motion to adjourn?
We do.
Sure.
I'll make that.
You do? Okay, thank you. Second? Thank you, Matt. All those in favor of adjourning, please say aye.
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 Opposed? All right, hang up. Goodbye, guys and gals.
Have a wonderful weekend, everyone.
Yes.
Thanks.
Bye, everyone. Thank you. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Thanks. Have a good one. Thanks, Marion.